Are you seriously going to eat, you fat blibbity blabbity blob? I mean,
It's
some of you might be like,
continual.
why would I want to start this?
Sensitive. She's sensitive.
You are listening to the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast, where we share stories that are, you guessed it, unscripted.
That's the thing, this journey doesn't stop.
It doesn't really
right?
end. We have a general sense of the topic each episode, but really the whole point is just to show up and be authentic and let our inner child speak its truth. And I have continued to work through that story of constantly hearing, well, we don't want, got a hot dog on our hands. Yeah, guess what, Mr. Sabatsky, you do. So I'm so excited that you are here, and it is my hope that you hear yourself somewhere in the story so that way you can feel seen and heard as well. So let's start talking. Welcome to the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast. Coming to you this week with a little different episode, and there's a story behind that, of course, in that I almost didn't deliver a podcast this week because this week has been really heavy, and I knew I wanted to do a solo episode because this is episode 30, and that's kind of a fun thing, and I wanted to celebrate it and kind of do a little recap like I did for episode 20. And so I was fully prepared for that, like mentally preparing. And I've been thinking about what I wanted to talk about because normally you give me a topic and I will turn it into inner child, whatever, just like that. So it's generally not a problem. And I kept thinking about what I wanted to talk about because I've obviously shared, if you follow me on social media, I shared some big things on there recently, but I was like, I don't know if I'm quite ready to talk about that on the podcast yet. I thought people keep asking me about how did you find inner child work? And I was like, well, it found me. And it's such a loaded question to get in your inbox. So I was like, maybe I'll just talk about that on the podcast. So I was going to do that. But for some reason, like stuff, it just, yeah. Yesterday, Thursday, I'm recording this. This is Friday. You guys are listening to this on Tuesday or whenever you listen to it. Shout out to my faithful Tuesday, tune in Tuesdaysers.
Tami Talks Tuesday.
Yes, those peeps. Listen to it fresh off the press.
Tune in Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. I have my friend Erika here. For those of you that are listening and don't know that someone is sitting next to me, we will fill you in on that. So again, a little backstory. On Thursday, I had fully prepared. I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to talk about the podcast. Whenever it comes through because I trust my ability to channel. And I had this great coaching session with a client that morning. And then in the afternoon, I was supposed to have a discovery call with someone about the Inner Child Healing Retreat, which is coming up November 14th and 17th. So anyway, I'll talk about that later. Don't let me forget to talk about that.
Okay.
And I came back down to my apartment and I got really emotional, really sad, like to the point where I couldn't form a sentence without crying. I was like, what the fuck? Sorry, is going on? And it made sense to a degree. Again, if you follow me on social media, I had an uncle that passed away from brain cancer this week. And so there was a lot of heaviness, obviously. And I know I'm an empath and I take on other people's energy. And so I was like, okay, maybe my daily energetic hygiene needs to be ramped up a little bit. So I honored that. And I went paddleboarding and it was great. And I felt better. But even when I came back, like I just can't, like something about, I knew there was going to be a block. I'm like, whatever you sit down and record is not going to be, I just felt it. So like, I'm going to do it Friday morning. I'm going to do it Friday morning where it's sleep, new day, it's a great day. And yeah, it did not happen this morning. So I worked out, had a great workout. I don't know, it was a pretty like normal morning. I had my post-workout shake. I did my little meditation, which was interesting. And that conversation that I had after some of this stuff is that during my meditation, I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about during this podcast. And someone had asked me yesterday about how inner child work and working with me might be different than like going to traditional therapy. And she's like, well, maybe ask people, like, has that moved the needle? And, it got me thinking about like, yeah, the whole imposter syndrome and what would make people want to work with me if I don't have like a million diplomas and certifications on the wall and things. And I thought like, I honestly, like, I don't know if I could work with someone who hasn't gone through this journey. And I thought as a dietitian, I knew it was hard for patients and clients to open up to me if they didn't know my story. And I know that there was a lot of bias if a dietitian was like tall and skinny patients legit said, like, she doesn't know. How can I open up to her? And so I was thinking about that. And I'll come back to a thought that I had, but there was multiple scenarios where I walked through and I was like, yeah, if you haven't been there, it's really hard to relate to someone. So fast forward, I do my little meditation and I got up thinking like, okay, I'm good. I'm going to like get ready. And I just like, I'm in my bathrobe and stuff still. And I like fall over onto my pillow and I just start crying. Like real deep crying. And I'm back. There
You gotta let it out, girl. Gotta let it out.
and I had thoughts that I haven't had in a really long time. And I just kept feeling like I don't want to be here. I don't want to be in this 3D world. I want to just go with my spiritual friends and family who understand me. And I don't have to explain myself, where I can just be who I am. And I don't have to be in this 3D world where there's judgments, where this is hard, where I'm trying so hard. And I couldn't shake it. I couldn't shake this feeling. I'm like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to record this podcast today. I don't want to and I couldn't, there's no thoughts coming in about my kids. There's no none of that. I just don't want to be here anymore. And it felt really, really heavy to the point where I couldn't shake this. And before all this happened, Erika happened to be texting me about something that was going on with you this morning. And I was, messaging her about that. And then all this happened. And thank goodness, my highest self was like, you need to message her about how you're feeling, and going back to my meditation is one of the thoughts that I had thought about was, how do you help someone who's having thoughts to leave if you've never been there? And it's like for just like a split second, I was like, oh my gosh, is this what this feels like? And something I haven't openly shared on this podcast is that I've experienced that with someone in my family. My father-in-law was someone who took his own life. And I had a thought of like, is this what they think about? Like that's where I was, or there was no, and again, it was just for such a split second. I shouldn't say that. It was longer than that because
It was a little longer.
yeah. But I, again, for a moment felt like, oh, I understand this, where it feels like there's such despair and darkness and none of the good things in my life were shining through at all. Like, again, I have 2 kids that I love like crazy. Like I would never do that. But in that moment, they were not penetrating this wall. And so luckily, again, like my highest self comes through and says, you need to message Erika. And so I sent her a text because I had said something about this eclipse energy can kiss my ass because it's been really heavy. And I'm recognizing the more that I'm talking about it, the more I'm not alone. And the more a lot of people are feeling really heavy energy right now, feeling like, what the fuck is going on? Am I going crazy? And that was kind of what you were saying too.
Yeah, I mean, I read the message. You're like, this, they can kiss my ass. I'm like, sister, yes, because I don't want to get out of bed today. And I had this whole list of things that I thought I was going to do today. And I'm a go-getter. So I was like, let's get after it,
Yeah.
And from the moment I got up this morning, was like, I feel heavy and this is hard and I want to go back to bed. My energy has been off for a couple days,
Yeah.
but today worse than
Yeah.
all days. And so like, even just having you say that to me was like, so I'm not alone in this. Like,
Yeah.
like there are other people feeling like, what's going on? Because I don't have a real reason to feel like this.
Right.
I just was like, today is heavy.
Yeah.
Today is heavy. And so like, I think the beauty of just that simple message was able to say, oh,
Right.
like,
Maybe this
yeah,
is just me.
I'm feeling this too. And then it gave you permission to kind of open up a little bit.
Right. And again, more of that, and this is why I share when I'm going through stuff on social media, and it is, my ego can sometimes tell me like, oh, poor Tami trying to get attention. Like, no, it's not that, because I want people oh, because I do. I have someone reach out every time, like, oh my gosh, it's not just me. Me too. I'm feeling this way too. And so that's why I share these things because I feel like I am in tune with the energy. And sometimes, like, when there's full moons or eclipses and stuff, like, sometimes, like, I'm a few days ahead of it, like, oh, it's coming. Like, I feel it heavy. And so, like, I want to help that message get out there. Like, no, you're not going crazy. Like, it's just things are intense. Here's how to support yourself through it. So I said that of like, this eclipse energy can, kiss my ass. And then when she said that she was having a hard time getting out of bed too, I said, it's not just you. This week-long funk is crushing me. And for whatever reason, I can't move past the thoughts of just wanting to leave this 3D world today to go live with my spiritual family. I said, I don't know if these feelings are mine, but they are very strong today. I've meditated, I've prayed, I've cried, I've saged, I've messaged you, and these feelings still won't leave. And she messages me some thoughts like, well, is this about like your uncle and him passing? And I'm like, I don't know. And I felt like I moved through that yesterday. Because yesterday, like when I went on the paddleboard, like I knew this was like heavy sadness that felt related to what my family was feeling and how can I release this for them? And it felt like I did that.
And I think what was important to recognize in this moment was regardless of how heavy those feelings were, you knew that they were not your feeling.
Yeah.
You were like, these feel incredibly real to me. This heaviness feels real. And I'm trying to work through like this physical body response that I'm having. But you also knew that this feeling of despair and hopelessness was not yours.
Right.
It was someone else's. And trying to connect those dots to say, like, where is this coming from and who is crying out to be seen and heard? And how can, like, I have to be able to work through this.
Yeah. Right. And because like, I don't, like, it almost felt like, who am I letting down? Like, by shutting this down and like, I've got to move through this. I don't know who it's for, but yeah, it very much, when I messaged you, I could start to see that they weren't mine. And like deep down, I knew they weren't, but again, I couldn't even like feel that in that moment. And so, she messages me that and I continuing to cry. And at one point I just like fell on the floor in my bedroom, outside my bathroom. And it was just like crying, like hyperventilating, crying, like I couldn't like catch my breath. And then my phone rings and it's Erika. And I just like barely managed to say hello. And I just put my phone on speaker and set it next to me. And she just let me cry. Like, just so I could have someone to cry with. Like, thank you for that.
Yeah, I think we spend a lot of time worried about in the moments of discomfort when someone comes to you with something very heavy. What do I say?
Yeah.
How do I fix this?
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people feel that fixer energy about them. And sometimes the best thing that we can do is follow our intuition, whatever it's telling us to do in our hearts is probably the right answer. Don't let your head drive the bus because then that's when you say stupid stuff. But when your heart really says like, you need to call someone, you need to be present with someone, then that's what you have to do. And so in the moment I was like, Tami and I mean, we talk on the phone usually, but it's a lot of texting and a lot of like funny gifts and just like, oh, let's lift each other up, right? But like in that moment, knowing the magnitude of her message, saying like, she needs someone to carry the weight with her. And I think the importance of this message is really just to like, let people know that in the discomfort of really difficult situations, sometimes the best thing that we can do is just be present and carry the weight. And so I know like in that moment for Tami and I, like I needed to have a connection to her. And so like having her be on the phone was like all it took for then that energy to start like pouring out of her and by saying nothing, that's how I helped, because I could feel my energy shifting and my ability to like help her pull out those emotions and release them from her body just by like listening and being present for her. And so in the tough conversations, I think like sometimes it's not about what you say, it's just about being present, and having known Tami as well as I know, like I knew those feelings were not hers, but I had to check in on her, right? And help kind of move through that and share the load.
Well, and when you said that as we were talking, and she said, I just felt like I need to call you. Like this feels like it's too heavy for you to carry alone. And I said, well, that makes sense of why I fell to the floor, because it was. And I didn't need you to say anything. Like what you did was perfect. Like you just let me cry, and I didn't feel the need to like hurry up and suck it up, Tami, and say you're sorry for crying. Like I didn't say I was sorry. I felt it for a second where like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm crying. I'm like, I'm not saying that. I'm not apologizing. And that was the definition of how to hold space for someone. Like, I'm just going to sit in this with you. And you literally did. You pulled over into a parking lot and sat with me.
That shouldn't park and
And it's a good thing I did, because I'll be honest, like, as another empath, like being able to, I had to remove myself from like what I was doing to be able to be physically and emotionally present for you. And I'm glad I did, because then I became overwhelmed with emotion that I was not prepared for. And just like feeling like, yeah, we say hold space, but we also like, I truly was carrying some of the load, because I found myself starting to cry in my car, not out of pain for Tami, but out of like just legitimate emotion coming through our connection to say like, these feelings are heavy. I feel them too on my heart, and they're weighing down. And I was able to release some of it while you were releasing the other parts of it. And I think that was like the key of working through, right, just how big these feelings were.
Yeah. Well, and I think about that, and I've known that about myself after like learning about energy, like, oh, it made sense of my whole life that I'm an empath and how I've always felt people's emotions and why I can hear someone's story and and maybe that is why working with me is different, because I will sit in it with you and I will cry with you because I can't help it. Like because I naturally, as an empath, and they call it like you transmute energy, you're filtering that energy and like shifting it. And that's literally what happens. And you're just moving it through. And to think about how we can do that for people. And like she literally came in and helped to lighten that load for me. And sometimes like that is what you can do without having to say a word, to just be there for someone. And so please follow those nudges to reach out to people. You're never going to regret saying like, hey, are you okay? Everything okay? Just wanted to check in. Or if someone pops in your mind, send them a message, because you have no idea on that end of what they're going through. And she could have brushed off.
I literally can't tell you how many times that's legitimately happened to me,
Yes.
where I've gotten like a feeling deep here, like,
Yeah.
I haven't thought about this person in X amount, and then here it is, and maybe I dismiss it, and then 10 minutes later, something else about that same person, and I'm like, okay, I gotta apparently reach out to them. And it doesn't mean open yourself up to like unhealthy access, right? To
Right.
like
Oh, yeah.
other individuals, but listening to your intuition is one of the things that like I think it's so hard, because you're relinquishing like physical and mental control
Yeah.
to just like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to say or do this, or I'm supposed to do whatever. But the more that you do it and you see the gifts that come from it, like I'm not gonna lie, I have no shame telling Tammy I had a to-do list that was 80 miles long today. Straight up. I was like, let's get cracking. We're gonna knock this thing out because I got plans. And that's when the universe says to you, no, ma'am, there's something more important here that needs to be done. And, I could have not called her.
Right.
And I don't think that would have been the right answer, right? Like following my intuition was what got me here. And so I think the point
Yeah.
we're really trying to make is like in these feelings and in these times of like very difficult conversations, when you don't know what to do or say, sometimes your presence is the present.
Yes. Very
Like,
much so. Even if it was literally on the phone in silence, just letting me cry.
well, right. Cause like I asked at one point, like, do you need me to physically be present with you? 10 minutes later, we're moving through feelings and emotions and we're discussing. And all of a sudden I'm like, I'll see you in an hour and 15 minutes because we need to share this with people. We need to talk about what this feels like and how to address the mental health aspect of like not having to move through difficult feelings and emotions alone. And then when you're on the receiving end of those difficult emotions and heavy and big, like, how do you respond?
Right.
Because I think those two things they're just like part of what makes people so uncomfortable.
Right.
And when we get uncomfortable in our uncomfortableness, then we do really silly things.
Yeah. We say the wrong things.
Yeah.
We do the wrong things. Like, no,
Yeah.
no, just be,
Yeah.
like tap into your heart space and like what feels
Like, well,
right in this moment, because your ego will swoop in and say all these other things, what you should do. And like, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to, like, I couldn't like maybe not answer the phone or be like, no, you don't need to come here, or all of these things. Or you're right. So many things that could, but you just in that moment, this is what feels right.
and it was beauty that in that moment, because I straight up was like, if she doesn't answer, and in that moment, like it would have been your ego's
Yeah. You don't need
story
help. Yeah. Oh,
to not
100%.
answer. And so for you to even click
Right.
and answer in that moment of vulnerability, like there's another lesson in that too, folks. Like the universe is going to send you what you need. God is going to send you what you need when you need it. You have to be open to receiving it.
Yeah.
That one.
Right.
So
So
I don't know
here's
who I'm hurting to, but
here's another kind of a cool full circle moment with Erika sharing this, is because since her and I have met, like I know a fellow empath when I see them. I know I can see people's spiritual gifts from a mile away. That's maybe one of my gifts, is like, yeah, it's very apparent God has a plan for you. Like I can see that. I know that. And I have been like, Erika, you are spiritual. I'm sorry. Like you can deny it all you want, but it is so apparent. Like stop this. And so like watching you sit in the discomfort of that, because again, when you think about like different beliefs and what you were brought up and the things that we were taught, like there's parts of this whole spirituality thing that like, I don't know how I'm supposed to sit with that and feel about that. And you really have, but yet it's become, and that was our original conversation this morning. Part of it was like, how much more clear does God have to make it to you that you are intuitive as fuck?
yeah.
I mean, I'm sweaty.
Leading then leading into the conversation that's like, how do you have these discussions with people about things
Yeah.
to explain what you're walking through when you can't explain what you're walking through? Like you can't comprehend, you can't understand your feelings. And then you're supposed to be like, hey, to this next person who doesn't get it, like,
Right. Because then they look at you like you're crazy. And so then you
feel that.
and then
You don't know.
right. And then you shut down about it. Like, I don't have anyone I can talk to about this. And I feel like that has been part of my gift, is how do I translate this for people? And that's why I share so much of my story, and I share the lessons and the nuggets that I've learned, like I'm just trying to like open people up to that, or why I write so much. And so I know that is part of this, is like, trying to help people understand. But even that, like,
Even the translator needs help sometimes, right?
Right.
Like that's kind of what today was. And we're like, hey, cool, thanks for the present. But where the hell is the owner's manual? When you the instruction, what do I do with this gift? What does this mean? I don't what about right? Adult assembly required.
Right.
I thought give me the batteries and let me go.
fully assembled plate.
Yeah.
When we have it fully assembled, ready to play with.
I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what this means. And like, do I know what you went through today? What all of that means? No.
Right.
We can bounce ideas off of each other and speculate back and forth. But, you know, often when we're walking through something difficult, the lesson that is in that painful package, as
Yes.
Tami likes to say, it's not revealed until
Yeah.
later when you can turn around and look at it through different eyes, right? And so, like, even Tami, having been like, she has this amazing gift for healing and translation and just like being able to help people work through their emotions. She needs those things too, right? And you know, her dumb ego is out annoying a couple times, right?
Come beat your ego up.
Yeah. You guys, when we're feeling really heavy things and we're working through hard emotions, that's not us.
No.
Like, that's not us speaking some of these things or like our true, authentic being sharing our real thoughts and feelings. And to be able to like separate from that and recognize like what are my feelings?
Yeah.
What is energy coming from somewhere else?
Right. And I feel like that's part of, like, again, like working with me is I love to help people see, like, that's ego. Like, that's not you. And if you can detach from it and you can see it outside of yourself, and I think that's why I was able to see that today. Like, these aren't mine. This isn't mine. But again, if for a moment it felt so real, it felt like mine. But deep down, I knew it wasn't, because I know enough now to know when my ego is trying to protect me from feeling hard things. I know when it's, trying to sabotage or whatever. But like today was very different. And when you can help people see these thoughts and feelings and things that we have, like, sometimes they are not your own, and it is your ego's way of protecting you, and sometimes in a really awful, dangerous way. Like it was saying, like, Tammy, this is too painful. You don't want to feel this today. Let's just check out. And like,
Well, and then, you also have your ego swooping in trying to tell you,
yeah,
you need to stop with this crying on the floor bullshit and you need to get up and, well, whatever, right? Like,
Yeah.
and pushing you to not process.
yeah.
And we know where that gets us, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, and that was part of our conversation is once I could finally start talking, I was telling her about the podcast. And yesterday, like, I gave myself space. I saw my inner child next to me. I saw her sad, and I was like, I'm not going to ignore you. Your feelings are more important than my to-do list. And so I honored that. I went paddleboarding. But now today it's crunch time. Like, I got to get this episode to Faith by Friday to get it out. And I'm trying to be respectful of her time. And so I try to get them out as early as I can. So I was already pushing it. I was already feeling guilty. I was already feeling like now I'm going to be a burden, and I'm feeling bad, my people pleaser, right? And I'm like, you can record a podcast, like, to hell and back. Like, so I'm talking to Erika. I'm like, maybe I don't record a podcast this week. Like, maybe that's it. Like, maybe I just put a message out. Well, I was actually a guest on Faith's podcast. Go check that out. She just posted that today, actually. Well, this is Tuesday. This is Friday. So go check out Faith's podcast. We'll link it here. But I was like, well, maybe I could approach her and say, hey, do you want to need a market and put your podcast and it can be on mine too? And we'll use that for this week. But then I said, you know what, maybe Erika, maybe I just hop on and say, hey guys, this week's going to be short and sweet. I kind of need a mental health week. So I'm like, maybe I just share a little bit about today, just a little bit. Well, and then her and I got talking because I said, I could hear my ego saying, or Tami, why don't you grow the fuck up and be an adult and do your job? Because you have people that are expecting an episode, people that are counting on you, and grow up. Everyone else has to show up to their job. Why do you get a pass to just sit here and cry and feel your feelings and all that?
where we need to remember,
Yeah.
hi, asshole ego. Sorry for my language, everybody.
No, I
this,
swear all
is,
the time.
this is legit. Okay, this is the real life situation.
We're not filtering this.
You showing up
Yeah.
is your job. You processing emotion is your job.
Yeah.
Whoever's feelings that these are, whatever heavy emotions that you're working through, if you ignore them because of your to-do list or your deadlines or the arbitrary, pressures that are placed on us from the expectations
Yeah.
of just the world, that's speaking more volumes about not being worthy, not being enough, and you're not helping the way that you were put on this earth to help. Right? It is your job. You are doing the best that you can do when you stop and show up as your authentic self and process all of those things. And so, again, the perfect example of how like ego will try and tell us like, oh, you POS, like get it moving.
Yeah.
Everybody else can do whatever. Oh yeah, cool. But is everybody else also thriving?
Is there generations of trauma they have the process of
Like, oh, guess what? While they thrive and meet their deadlines, they also are slowly dying inside, right? Like, no, I don't think so. There is always a reason for things, right? And like, I think the core lesson in all of this, no matter what we're talking about, whether this is like feeling your energy, other people's energy, showing up for people, holding space for people, doing any of these things, the core that you can derive from this episode is your intuition is powerful.
Yes.
And you spend years being told why your intuition is wrong.
Yeah.
And this is in many facets. I mean, we can get on a soapbox about all the things.
Yeah.
Intuitive, many, many things. But I think the golden nugget here is like when you're feeling pulled to do something, say something, do nothing, shut down, any of those things, like a lot of that is because our bodies are energetic beings and our intuition guides us to tell us what we need. We think we know what we need. We don't know what we need. Right? So tap into that. Like, listen, follow the nuggets. It's not easy. I'm sitting here telling you like it's,
But you've done it. And that's like, I had to go through that same process of learning how to trust myself. Yeah.
and I'm still not anywhere near where I need to be, but it's getting easier.
It is. It is for you. You can see that.
I mean, when you listen and see a result happen because of it, that is positive because you helped someone.
Yeah.
Or you changed a trajectory of something into something positive that you didn't see from that moment, you start to prove to yourself a little bit at a time that like my intuition is not here to hurt me. It's here to bless me.
Right.
Like, okay, I have to start listening, even if it means relinquishing control of like,
that is
my own
because
my own story.
And it makes sense. Like ego wants control because to ego, control is safe. If it can control all the variables, and again, that's a childhood thing. If you grew up in an unpredictable environment or walking on eggshells, control is what makes your ego feel safe. So listening to your intuition, your ego like, what? Well, like that's taking chances. That's following. We're like, no, that's following my heart. That's following my path. But your ego's like, yeah, but there's uncertainty there. So let's stay at this job. Let's stay in this relationship. But none of that is actually safe, right? Or comfortable. I remember working with a woman and she said, I guess she was at a job where it was very, very toxic. And we were talking about this comfort zone. And she's like, it feels like my comfort zone. And all of a sudden it hit her. She's like, oh, I guess I'm comfortable being verbally and emotionally abused. That was comfort. That's like trauma bond. That's when that is what you just know, that's conditioning. And so your intuition will guide you out of that. That's the things that like, hey, you should go, job search, or you should talk to so-and-so. Maybe like that's your intuition trying to guide you out of those things. Just like it guided me to be like, you know what, you should actually send Erika that text. And again, trusting that maybe like she would know what to do. But we
Well,
have to be able to tap into
clear,
that.
I didn't know what to do.
Right.
Right. Like
You just acted like, I don't know what to do. I'm
know
just going to be there.
what
I'm
to
just going to be
do.
there. Yeah.
I just did what I felt in my soul was the right thing to do. And now hindsight's 2020, right? Ooh, yeah. Look, it looks like I did this great thing. But like, if we're truly speaking unscripted,
Which we are.
I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like,
I'm just going to pick up the phone
this
and
is heavy,
call.
and
Yeah.
this feels like the right way to show up.
Right. And that's where ego will get in the way, is because you'd be like, I need to call them. Well, I don't know what to say. I don't know if I can help. I don't know. No, it doesn't matter. Just be there. Just show up. Just hold space.
Well, how many
Not
times,
fix.
like when we really think about this from like a perspective of a person who's been hurting, how many times would one of us, if we are sobbing in our feelings, see a name come across the screen and not answer merely because in your soul, I can't listen to them. I can't take what they have to say because it's not going to help me.
Yeah.
And then you don't pick up the phone.
Yeah.
It's not always about saying anything.
And you can
You're
say
not here
that to people.
fix. You're not here to fix.
Right.
You like when I'm hurting, I would say 95% of the time, I just want to be loved and cared for and paid attention to.
Now that you say that, I think back to like when I was on the floor, I found myself like rubbing my feet together and I was like brushing top of my head, like someone was stroking my head. And like I had that thought of like, oh, like I just like
if someone was thinking,
that's literally all I need. I don't need someone to come in. I just need someone to hold me in this. And it was just that comforting feeling of like, a parent or whatever, just feeling that connection, right? And that's so much of where that despair stuff comes in when we don't have that connection. And I had to literally create that for myself in that moment until you called.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And again, think about that.
Longing for safety.
Right. And again, from an inner child perspective, think about that. Like, what do your kids need when they're really upset? Like oftentimes it doesn't do any good to rush in and try to fix it and give them the solutions. Like they just need you to hold them in their sadness, to listen to their frustrations. They just need you to be there in that moment with them, to sit in it with them, not fix, not correct, not whatever. And you can get to that point eventually and like have those conversations and whatever. But yeah, I think that's such a huge takeaway from today is knowing how to hold space for someone, knowing when you need someone to hold space for you, because that is something that I have had to work really hard on. Yeah. Because in this role, I feel like, I should be able to figure it out. I should be able to process it myself. And oftentimes I will, like, it's almost like this challenge of like, I can figure this out on my own. And today was like, not today, Tami. Not today. You need to be able to reach out and have those people. And that's where it's important to have your people. And if you don't have your people, guess what? You got Erika and I. We can be your people. Can message us when it's like, hey, I'm having a day and I just need you to hold. And you can ask, like, what do you need from me? Do you need to be heard? Do you need to be held? Do you need like raccoon? Do you need a raccoon? So can I share that that's our...
I'm the raccoon
She's
lady.
the raccoon lady. I mentioned on a previous episode that I have a friend who we send raccoon emojis to, and it's Erika. Just when we're like, I'm feeling it. I don't necessarily need to talk about it. I just need you to hold space for me.
I think a lot of times people don't understand what that means.
No.
What does hold space mean? And how do I do that?
Yeah.
Or how does someone do that for me? Is that just something that you say to somebody and whatever?
It's a fancy thing.
Yeah. Like, I don't think that people necessarily understand that it legitimately is exactly what it says. It's presence without strings.
Yeah. Ooh.
Like I'm just here.
Yeah.
And my analogy, I literally think about like the guy carrying the world on his back.
Yeah.
Hunched over, trying to walk forward.
Yeah.
And how heavy it is. And just like, let me take a little nugget of that.
Right. Well, and what's
Don't want it.
also right, really powerful is, and I will feel this with you, but I'm not going to then carry it. Like it's for both of us to release it, so neither one of us has to carry this anymore. Like you have to know when to set it down. And that was something I didn't know that I even had to do until I learned about energy and being an empath and how you take on, like, no wonder it feels like I'm carrying the weight of the freaking world, because a lot of times I am. So I have to, and I mentioned this yesterday with my freaking plant over there. I'm really good at, you guys, like, I had generally good energy in this place, and my plants have been somewhat thriving. And this one in particular, um, it's right there. So I see it every day, and I've been really good at keeping it watered. And all of a sudden, like I went back home to celebrate my dad's birthday and like be there with him, with my uncle passing. That was Wednesday night, and Thursday morning, I woke up, I'm like, whoa, like there's no way I missed that many days. No way I missed that many days. But it was like, I didn't know if that thing was going to bounce back. I was like, I said, I'm like, I immediately thought of like the energy that I probably brought home that night. I know we don't want to think like plants and animals and things are intuitive, but oh, they are. And yes, the plant was dry, but it reminded me, because I know I just watered that earlier this week, that sometimes the daily things that I do to clear my energy sometimes are not enough. Sometimes there are bigger energy demands when you're dealing with bigger things. And I needed to attend to that plant a whole lot more, just like I needed to. And I recognized that yesterday. That plant was like, "Ooh, Tami, like we might need to ramp up the self-care here." Like, because I was doing extra, holding space for all these people and trying to clear it. And like my system was getting taxed. I was getting energetically drained like that plant was, because even though I was going to the gym, I, you know, ate well and drank my water, I needed more in that moment.
I think the legitimate message I sent you was like, oof,
Yeah.
that is really heavy.
Yeah.
And probably too heavy to move.
Yeah.
Which is why you're not moving it in the ways that you normally do.
Right.
Because
like this is a big old boulder and I don't.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it was, again, now knowing more about the morning is that like during what I was feeling, there was a conversation happening outside of that was, I know, was really heavy, and things are happening in the world, in the bigger screen. There's so much stuff going on in the world right now where it's like, what the hell is going on? And then like things are happening, things are crumbling. This old way of doing things, this old way of sweeping things under the rug, this old way, the way we used to do things. It's like the universe is like, no more. We're done. You people need to show up as you are. We're done hiding shit. We're done covering stuff up. We're done. I mean, like you think about, government too, whatever, like there's a hurricane, like everything is getting shook up right now. And it was just very interesting in that particular moment, what was happening outside of me that I was feeling. So that was validating to me, like, okay, like that wasn't mine. And like you had said, like me tapping into more of my gifts and strengthening that, or like, whoa, that was like the most powerful thing I have ever experienced before. Like I said, like, where's the freaking manual for this? The instructions are really complicated.
I don't want to be I don't want to be a 1993 dad on Christmas morning.
I'm trying to wait, cool. I need this fully assembled universe. Thank you. If you want me to help humanity with these steps, I just want
like that's the semi-annoying thing about gifts, right? Is like, oh, so you have them and you know that you do, and that you can help other people learn to process their emotions and be and do all these things. Yet we're not going to tell you what any of it means, what to do in the moment, or how to get the gift of the end. You just wing it.
But that's how the universe is funny, because it's like, yeah, I need you to trust. I need you to use your intuition to know that these are your gifts and this is what you're supposed to do with it. It's like, oh, real funny game. Like these instructions suck.
Yeah.
They are not. But that's literally what it is. It's like,
no, the Chinese instructions with no words, only pictures.
Oh, yeah. Well, and this comes back full circle moment to why would someone want to work with me if I don't have all of those things? And like, I know, like I have to trust, like, this is my purpose. These are my gifts. I wasn't like, brought into this inner child world for no reason. Like there's a reason that I've been put through the ringer on this and through hell and back. And I have to trust that. And I have to be okay with people not trusting that, but also be open to attracting the people that do. And that this was the gift that I was given. How am I supposed to use it? And I, again, when you talked about like showing up, I also know that part of my gift is showing up by showing people how to move through it. Like, because we weren't taught how to feel our feelings. Like when you're having moments like I had this morning, how do you move through that? How do you clear your energy? Like, apparently I'm supposed to share my experiences. Like, this is not like a
With the
proud
rest
moment that
of
I
the
like
world.
to tell everyone that I just this happened this morning. I was like, no, you have to.
This is like the other half of your gift is being comfortable in vulnerability. And let me tell you, that is not an easy one
No.
to unwrap.
No.
And the beauty of you being willing to come forward to share that part of your story, like these are things that lots of people would be processing in private, right? And not sharing with everyone. And I think the best part about unscripted healing is the authenticity and letting all of you know that we're all going through the shit. Okay. We're all going through it in some degree or another. And I think just recognizing that we don't deal with it perfectly.
No.
But
I have snot, like the biggest snot.
I think that's the point, right? Is like, we don't deal perfectly, but we have to deal. And, you know, if Tami would have not processed those emotions today and she just would have been like, don't got time for you. Same as yesterday. If she would have said, don't have time for you, the content that you guys would have got would have been not good. And also, she's denying who she is and what she's working through. And I think the beautiful package of that for us to understand, to relate to our own lives, is that if you don't show up as your authentic self and who you are meant to be, whatever product comes out of that, it's half-assed. And
Absolutely.
it's not like it's not enriching the rest of the world, yourself, your environment, the people you love and come into contact with. Like, none of that stuff is going to grow and
Right.
blossom the way that it would if you fertilized it with the good stuff.
Right.
You know? And we are on somebody else's timetable here, right? We are tools. And
I know you are, but what am I?
And we just have to remember that there is greater purpose here, and that, you know, sometimes we have to relinquish control. And it's hilarious because I'm telling you, any of you who are listening to this podcast who know me personally are laughing your asses off right now because I'm like not having control over here.
Yes. Guys,
I
we
really
love
love my life.
when we try to like plan something, she's like, God damn, because I'm a like 5 out of C in my pants, I'm a winged girl, and she's just like, can you give me some fucking dates? Can you work it down? Like, bring it down the last minute.
It's
But then both of our childhood wounds in different ways, coming out in different ways. But I do love when things are scheduled and planned. Like that feels comfortable and safe, but that is not my norm. Like I'm used to operating in chaos. I'm used to let's go, go, go.
And for me, operating in chaos equals rein it in.
Yeah.
Rein the chaos in. Yeah. Have the schedule prepared. Know what's coming for the next.
Yeah.
I'm scheduled till February.
You know what I mean? Like, know what's coming.
Yeah.
And then you can prepare and soften the blow, right? But I think exercising
the happy medium between that too as well, right? Because I think there's power in both. Like I love that I can be intuitively guided and what is supposed to happen will happen and things will always work out and da 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 da. I cause a lot of unneeded stress in doing that sometimes, but everything generally always works out. But like over control too. And so it is about like, because the pendulum swings both ways, right? And so I think you and I are both probably.
What did I say? Opposite attract.
Yeah.
In many relationships, right? Including our friendship, look at that.
Oh my goodness. Well,
Spirits have guided us to come together because we balance each other.
for real, for real. And I can appreciate that about you because I can see where, areas of, I don't want to say weakness, but like you can show me that, like, oh, well, there is power in structure and things. And,
Also that there is like trust between the two of us that like, it's not like you didn't reach out to me today because you knew it wasn't on my calendar. Right. And then look at what has come of today. Right. Today is now a opportunity where we both filled our cups and we've shifted our energies, both of us,
yeah,
because we both wanted to be in bed today.
Yeah.
And now we're like, I don't know about you, but like I feel energized.
Oh my gosh.
And, like so happy to see you. And like I can go home and crush my stuff I had to do now, and I don't know. I think you gotta
trust. Well, and that was, so as I'm talking about what to do about this week's episode, because I didn't want to show up inauthentic. I can't. I literally can't. My soul will not let me do things that feel inauthentic anymore. So that's why I felt this block yesterday and this morning. This is like, nope, this isn't the message, Tami. This isn't the message. If you do, you're going to force it and it's not going to be authentic. And I feel that in so many areas of my life with relationships, with projects that I'm working on. Like if it isn't in alignment, like it is a massive, like, is it a childhood wound? I'm aware of that. I'll look at that. Or is it that it isn't in alignment? Is it pulling me out of being fully
and there's
authentic?
Supposed to be something else.
Right.
I said that to you. I was like,
yeah,
you're not supposed to, like, all these great ideas that she had shared with me yesterday and today about the things that she thought she should talk about. I was like, yeah, Tami, those are great ideas. It's not time for those.
Yeah.
Like, this is a clear message. And even though it was clear and she was receiving that, her ego was still blocking her to say, well, not putting out a podcast isn't acceptable.
Right.
Even though that was clearly the message. Well, actually, funny fact, the message wasn't that. And we worked through it. The message was your podcast needs to be about this story.
Yeah.
This moment.
Yeah. As we were
vulnerability.
talking through this and I was like, gosh, we should have just hit record on this in this conversation. And then she's like, I'll be there. I'm coming right now. We're like, okay. Like I'm like, we can just do it on Zoom. We can do it. But it was like, no, this is it. Like, this is the message of sharing what happened this morning. Cause I was just going to come on and again, say like, hey, not feeling it.
Is
great. So I was going to give you like a little snippet of like why I wasn't going to do a full episode. And I was like, no, we need to actually talk about this whole thing and how we supported each other through it. And yeah, so here you are, folks. This was the most unscripted episode yet.
Ow. I mean, we didn't even give a chance to tell the people who are listening about my existence. Like,
They're just like, we have to tell people,
like, this is what happened. And if this resonates with anybody about how you can show up for people during difficult times, then like we got to share it with people, because something that was just so heavy and so hard to work through. Now we're like, well, thank God we chose to trust each other to work through it in that moment, because now the energy is completely different and there's a clearer head around decisions that are made and things like that. So our mind will play really, really mean tricks on us, guys. And if you're experiencing these feelings of like despair, hopelessness, overwhelmed, sadness, like any of those things, it's okay to share that with people. And there are resources for you. We'll link some in the bottom description. If it's not us, any
reach out,
family, friends, anyone, or there's professional resources too. And it's just important to know that this life is really hard and our stories are all different, and we're owning our stories to be everything that they are. And We don't have to change them to wrap them in a pretty box with a pretty little bow and figure it all out. None of us have it figured out.
Nope. Nope. And, it's interesting you say that because someone had made a comment to me, like, maybe people would maybe take you more seriously if you didn't share so much of the lows that you have. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I need to show up real and show people how to move through it. And that I have these days too. How do I support myself? And some days doing my normal energy things and clearing and, like, again, like going to the gym or whatever, like those things help me. But even like today, like this was different and I needed to be able to share, like, this is how I supported myself when things got real dark real fast. And what is also important when you talk about like reaching out to people, and I've said this on the podcast before, this quote about you can't speak butterfly language to caterpillar people. And that is not an insult at all. It's just that when you are in that chrysalis, shit goes down and it gets real dark in there. And that is hard to explain to someone who has only lived a caterpillar experience. And so, again, that's where, like, why would it be different? Like, working with someone like me is like, I have been in that chrysalis. And even today was like, felt like brought back for a second. Like, there's one more little nugget here for you, Tami. We need you to know this kind of despair, this kind of darkness, so you can help support someone if they are ever there. Also knowing when I need to have other help and resources. And that's the work that I'm also doing offset, trying to reach out to different, places that can provide additional support. But you also need to make sure you're finding the people that get it and that understand it. And even if you're not best friends or you're like, I don't know, but there's something about them that maybe you feel safe. Like, you feel safe in their energy. And that is what is most important, because I will tell you, it's not who you've known the longest. Who do you feel safe in their energy? And Erika has obviously created that space for me where I can feel completely open and vulnerable to lay on my floor crying and sniffling on the phone with her and not feel like I needed to apologize, that I needed to hurry up or anything like that.
Yeah.
So your people are out there. And again, if you're like, I don't have those people, you do. You have the Tami Talks podcast, you have other listeners that, and that's actually something that someone had mentioned to me about, the community and like Patreon stuff. And I've thought about that and creating more of that aspect of like building this community, because I have people reach out to me all the time. And I thought, like, wow, what would it be like for them to be able to have a space if they wanted to share some of their stories in a community kind of thing. And so, my wheels are already turning, like, oh, what does that look like, Tami? But yeah, so yeah, we did a good job today moving through it.
Yeah. And, it's not gonna always work the way that you think it's going to. And next time this happens to you, maybe this isn't the thing.
Right?
But
Well, that's
I
very
think-
true, is that, and that's why I talked about like having like a fire drill of, because not everything is going to work in the moment, like what I experienced today, like no amount of working out, no matter like meditating or praying was touching that. It wasn't cutting through that. I had tried all these things that normally would work. It did not today. So I needed, like, okay, what's next? What's further down on that list of how to help support me? And so you have to have those things in place and know who those people are.
No matter what you're going through, no matter what your circumstance, you do not have to walk those things alone. Alone is where the darkness is.
Yeah.
Right. And the best thing to do in a dark space is to flood it with light. And that's the people who you choose to surround yourself with.
Yeah.
And there are people in this world who are willing to be a light.
Yeah.
I know it might not feel like that sometimes, and things might feel really dark and hard, but honor those feelings and say, I'm going to choose light.
Yeah.
And go pursue finding that, because you're worth it. Yes, your presence here on Earth
Matters. You matter.
You matter.
You are enough. That was my
And
sweatshirt
just
earlier.
like her sweatshirt,
Yes,
you
which is funny 'cause
absolutely are enough.
I showed up. I was going to record the podcast in my cute little sundress. And then when shit went down, I had to put on my hoodie and again, feel comforted and safe. Like I didn't even realize I was doing that just intuitively. Like I needed it to feel that. And sure enough, I put on the sweatshirt that says, "You are enough." And on the back, it says, "Dear person behind me, the world is a better place with you in it. Love the person in front of you." And so, on that note, thank you all for holding space for me and for Erika and for anyone else there who has felt that feeling. And again, know that you're not alone. We are here to support you. There are so many people out there to support you. Please reach out, find that light any way that you can, and know that it's not you. It's not you. And to be able to separate yourself from that so you can see that these are not my true thoughts. And sometimes your inner child can help you guide that too. So, well, thank you for this. Again, very impromptu, but this felt like, oh, this was the episode. I just didn't know it. So once again, trying to follow my intuition, knowing that everything would happen as it should. And here we are with hopefully a very helpful podcast. So one straight from the heart today.
And please, if you're listening and this resonated with you, or there's any bits of advice that you'd like to share, things that have maybe helped you through some dark times, or just a chance to share your story, jump in the comments and share that with us and the rest of the community. There's just so much beauty and strength in coming together, and there's not shame around this.
That is literally how we shine the light, right? So today it was me like, okay, I'm shining my light on this. And if more people say, oh my gosh, me too, and they turn on their light and turn on their light, pretty soon the darkness is a lot less dark. And we do start to light up the room. We do start to light up the world. And so it is important for us to share those moments, to share what we're going through, because that is how we bring light in.
And if you're not ready to share your story, thumbs up. Like, I'm here. This resonated with me, and like I feel this too. And you know, if you're not able to make yourself vulnerable to like share this link to this episode or anything like that, that's okay, you know. But if it did resonate with you, that you think there's maybe a message here that someone else needs to hear, share that, because that's the point, is we want to reach as many people as possible to share our stories, to spread the light and love.
Yeah.
The love. Because we are not meant to do this journey alone.
And I think that's the whole purpose. Like that is my gift. That is your gift. It's like, how do we bring more love into these situations? How do we bring more love into these dark times? How do we bring more love into these hard conversations? That is what we're all trying to get back to. And there's just so much deconditioning and removing masks and layers and all of these things to just come back to love for ourselves, love for each other, love for everyone's inner child, to be able to see people's inner child versus seeing their ego and judging them based off of ego. Like everyone has an inner child that just wants love. And if we can operate in a world where we see our coworkers like that, or we see our exes like that, or we see, you know, past friendships like that, or whatever it is, the world would be such a like kinder, more loving place. And I think that's the whole point. So on that note, folks, thank you so much for hanging with us on this episode, and hopefully you got something out of it. And yes, please let us know, even if it's just sending me a private message, so we can hold space for you, because I always do this. Like I want to wrap up and then I have this thought, but she had talked about what is holding space. When you say you're going to pray for someone, or you say you're going to send positive vibes to someone, or you're going to hold space for someone, like just even setting that intention is an energetic exchange. It's not nothing. You can certainly take further steps and reach out. But when you say those things, you set an intention that I am sending you energy. I'm sending you healing. I'm sending you love and light. So like when you say those things to people, receive, like fully give that, like you're really truly doing and giving them a gift. But if someone is saying that to you, like I will pray for you, or I'm sending you positive energy, receive that gift, because they truly are giving you a gift. It's not just words. that is energy, and energy is gold. So, all right,
We love you guys.
my last tangent.